Hello, thank you for joining me. So in this video, kind of one of the introductory videos, I'm going to be showing how to set up your first template file. The first template file is going to be our millimeter template file. We're going to follow the same format that's in our textbook. The textbook is Engineering and Design with SolidWorks by David C. and Marie P. Blanchard. So we're going to start from the top. We're going to apply the ANSI dimensioning standards, which is typical of what we do in the United States. That's in opposition to the ISO standards and some other standards out there. ISO is primarily European, International Standards Organization. And we're going to be creating our millimeter file for our, for the units we're going to be using are going to be in millimeters. We're going to apply a 2 unit after the decimal place precision on that. But in difference to the book, we're going to go ahead and apply dual dimensions to that. We're going to make the dual dimensions up to 3 units after the decimal. And then we're going to name it ultimately part-mm-ANSI. So let's do this. On your menu bar, there's not a whole lot going in SolidWorks right now, but if you go to the File, go to New, and if you've been working on a bunch of stuff as I've been, it'll show you some of the recent documents. It'll kind of gives you a little bit of a shortcut to those documents. But we're going to go to New up here. And you should have, under the Tutorial tab, the option to go ahead and select Part. So this kind of gives you an introduction to it. And this is a test question. What 3 documents can you open up in SolidWorks? And those 3 documents are going to be Part, Assembly, and a Drawing. So to get started, in order to do an assembly or a drawing, you really have to do a part. So this is our this basic bottom line here. We're going to start with the part. So we're going to go to OK. And what it does is it gives you a blank screen. So let's go ahead and talk about the Feature Manager design tree. We have a couple different managers up here. We have a Feature Manager, Properties Manager, Configuration Manager, Dimension Expert Manager, and our Display Manager. We're going to cover all these managers as we go through the course. But to kind of give you a little bit of an introduction, and later we'll get into more details on these things. I'm just going to start at the top and work our way down, so you have at least a little bit of an idea of what you're looking for here. This is kind of a new function in here. If you got a really complicated part with dozens of different extrudes and hundreds of sketches and stuff like that driving your whole part, if you need to find something, this area up here gives you the ability to go through your Feature Manager design tree, which is this. You don't have a whole lot here right away, but it gives you the ability to go through that. We'll cover that in a later video. Our part, which is called Part 4, yours is probably called Part 1. I've done this a couple times, actually 4 times. This is my 4th iteration of this, so it's called Part 4. And why don't we stop here in the Feature Manager design tree and just go ahead and save this. So let's go up to File, let's go to Save As, and let's make sure we put this into our proper folder. I have a folder that I want to call Class, and you should probably do the same thing too. This is all part of the file management. Let's right click in here and go to New and create a folder, and I'm going to call this my Class folder. And it's a good idea, and I'm going to mention this in the next video, but it's a good idea to segregate your work into different folders. And I would like to segregate our classwork, since we kind of follow in a week format, to separate these things into different weeks. So we're going to be starting week number 2 next week when we get started. So let's go ahead and create a week 2 folder. And if you're going to start a part, you're going to put it in that week 2 folder. But before we do that, because this is going to be a template file, let's create a folder called a template file. And to do that again, just to show that again, if you right click in this area with your mouse, we're going to go to New, we're going to go to Folder, and we're going to call this Templates. Double click inside of that, and now we're going to call it Part 4. In fact, you can probably erase the whole thing. It'll automatically put the SLDPRT file extension on the end of that, which is short for SolidWorks Part. And we're going to call that the same as it's called in the book. With the cap locks on, we're going to call that PART-MMM-ANSI. A little bit of dyslexia going on here, so we're going to call that part instead of ARP. And then we're going to go to Save. So now you notice that now instead of saying Part 4 up here, it says Part-MM-ANSI, which is what we call it. Okay, let's move on down. Sensors. Sensors we're not going to deal with in this class, at least not right now. It has a lot to do with simulation, which is a finite element add-on for SolidWorks. Annotations, we're not going to deal with that right now, but the annotations you put on your part, you can turn these things on and off and put those on different views if you desire. We'll cover that in future videos. Materials, we haven't specified a material. We're not going to do that in a template file, but it's something you probably want to get in the habit of doing. If it's an aluminum material or plastic, you want to specify what that material is. If you right-click on it, you can go to Edit Material, and it gives you a vast material library, and you have the ability to define some of your own items too, if you desire. Air, you want to do the inside of something. Okay, SolidWorks starts you with the front, top, right plane, and the origin. This is a test question. The front, top, and right plane, the intersection of those three elements, those three planes, is a point, and that point is called the origin. That's the center of the SolidWorks universe. Know that concept. Okay, in order to create our millimeter template file, what we want to do is go up in our menu bar again and go up here to this button up here called Options. Then we go to Document Properties, Drafting Standards. It may automatically default you to ISO. If that's the case, let's go ahead and scroll down to ANSI. Units. You want to make sure that you're doing millimeter gram second. So go to this radio button, go to millimeter gram second. And in regard to length, it's already got grayed out down here, but you can go down here and change some of these elements down here. For length, we're going to stick with the millimeters. That's in grayscale. We're going to make sure that's at 2. But if you want to change that, you have these options over here, but you want to make sure it's 2 units after the decimal. Dual dimension length, we're going to make sure that's in inches. If it doesn't say inches, make sure you change that to inches. And you can do that by going to this pull down menu over here and selecting inches. We're going to make sure that you're up to 3 units after the decimal. The inch is a much bigger unit, and so the precision needs to be a little bit higher there. So that's why we're going to choose 3 rather than 2. Angle, we're going to keep that as our default setting. And then we're going to go to OK, and those are the only 2 things we're going to change here. And now we have our millimeter part template file, and we want to make sure that we save that again. If you're not certain where it's going to save at, you might want to do save as and make sure it's going to go back into your template folder down here. And it's going to say part millimeter dash ANSI. And press OK, and yes, we want to replace it. But if you did just a simple file save, we would have done the same thing. Okay, I think that's enough for this video. Please join me for other videos.